A country overflowing with oil can still struggle with widespread poverty. Nigeria's oil wealth is a double-edged sword, fueling both economic growth and devastating poverty. What are the potential solutions to address poverty in Nigeria's oil-rich regions? Let's explore the role of international corporations and governments in addressing this problem. Nigeria discovered its first commercial oil well in Oloibiri, a small town in the Niger Delta, in 1956. This discovery promised a bright future. By 1971, Nigeria became a member of OPEC and was exporting millions of barrels of oil annually. Oil now accounts for about 90% of the country's foreign exchange earnings and roughly 60% of government revenue. On paper, this sounds like the foundation for prosperity, but the reality is far more complicated. Instead of creating wealth for all, this oil boom ushered in what economists call the resource curse, or the paradox of plenty. Countries rich in natural resources often suffer from weak institutions, economic mismanagement, and widespread corruption. Nigeria is a textbook example. Oil has made the country heavily dependent on a single industry, crippling other sectors like agriculture and manufacturing that once thrived. According to the World Bank, over 40% of Nigerians live below the poverty line. So, where does all the oil money go? Corruption lies at the very center of Nigeria's struggle with its oil wealth. For decades, successive governments have been mired in scandals, marked by embezzlement and gross mismanagement of the revenues generated from crude oil. Instead of channeling these earnings into national development, many political elites and officials have treated the country's oil wealth as their personal fortune, enriching themselves at the expense of ordinary Nigerians. One of the most infamous examples is the regime of General Sani Abacha, a military dictator in the 1990s. During his rule, billions of dollars of oil revenue disappeared from the nation's coffers. Investigations revealed that Abacha had looted over $4 billion, diverting much of it into personal and foreign accounts. The fuel subsidy fraud is a glaring case of exploitation. Despite being a major oil producer, Nigeria imports most of its refined petroleum. To make fuel affordable, the government provides subsidies. However, corrupt officials and businesses have taken advantage of this system, inflating claims and pocketing billions of dollars. In 2012 alone, over $6 billion was stolen through fraudulent subsidy claims, depriving the country of funds needed for public services. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, the state oil company, has also been a major source of mismanagement. For years, it has been accused of operating without transparency, losing billions annually to shady oil contracts, bloated expenses, and outright theft. The NNPC, meant to safeguard Nigeria's oil wealth, has instead become a symbol of inefficiency and corruption. Nowhere is the paradox of Nigeria's oil wealth more apparent than in the Niger Delta, the region responsible for most of the country's oil production. The environmental devastation caused by oil extraction has destroyed local livelihoods. Frequent oil spills pollute rivers and farmland, making fishing and farming almost impossible for local residents. Gas flaring, the practice of burning off natural gas during oil extraction, not only wastes valuable resources, but also releases toxic chemicals into the air. These issues have led to widespread anger and resentment. Activists like Ken Saro-Wiwa, who fought against the environmental and social injustice in the Delta, were silenced. Saro-Wiwa was executed in 1995 after a sham trial. Over the years, frustration over the lack of development and environmental destruction has fueled violent uprisings in the region. Militant groups like the Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta, MND, have attacked oil facilities, kidnapped workers, and disrupted production in demands for a fairer share of the wealth. Efforts to address these issues, such as the establishment of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, have largely failed. Corruption within these agencies has prevented meaningful progress, leaving the region in a perpetual state of neglect and unrest. One might wonder why a country with such immense oil wealth still struggles to improve the lives of its citizens. A key reason is how oil revenues are used, or misused. Instead of being reinvested into critical sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure, the money often disappears into the hands of the political elite. Public spending is notoriously inefficient. Schools lack basic supplies, hospitals are underfunded, and roads are poorly maintained. Meanwhile, the education system is under severe strain, leaving millions of children without access to quality schooling. Poor healthcare infrastructure means life expectancy in Nigeria is among the lowest in the world. Additionally, the focus on oil has stifled diversification in the economy. Nigeria was once an agricultural powerhouse, but the oil boom caused the neglect of this vital sector. Today, the country imports much of its food, and farmers struggle with outdated tools, limited funding, and poor access to markets. Similarly, manufacturing remains underdeveloped, as the government has prioritized oil over industrial growth. This over-reliance on oil has left Nigeria vulnerable to external shocks, such as the global oil price crash in 2014, which pushed the country into a recession. Multinational oil companies, such as Shell and Chevron, have had a profound impact on Nigeria's oil industry. Over the years, these corporations have invested heavily in oil exploration and production, helping Nigeria become one of the largest oil producers in the world. Their operations have contributed significantly to the country's revenue and global oil exports, but they have also come under intense criticism for the harm they have caused to the environment and local communities. One of the most serious issues involves oil spills, often caused by poorly maintained pipelines and infrastructure. These spills have polluted rivers, farmlands, and drinking water sources, devastating the livelihoods of people in the Niger Delta. Communities that once relied on fishing and farming have been left to deal with long-term environmental damage, often without adequate support or compensation. Not all nations blessed with abundant oil resources struggle with the challenges of the resource curse. A prime example is Norway, a country that has transformed its oil wealth into a tool for long-term development. Norway's success lies in its strong institutions and prudent management of oil revenues. The country created a sovereign wealth fund, known as the Government Pension Fund Global, which has grown to over $1 trillion. This fund ensures that oil profits are saved and invested wisely, benefiting not just the current generation, but also future ones. By prioritizing transparency and accountability, Norway has been able to use its oil wealth to fund essential public services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, while maintaining economic stability. Nigeria's situation, however, is a stark contrast. Is there hope for Nigeria? Yes, but it will require bold reforms and strong political will. First, tackling corruption is essential. Anti-corruption agencies like the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, must be empowered to investigate and prosecute cases without political interference. Transparency in oil contracts and revenue allocation must also be prioritized. Second, economic diversification is key to reducing dependency on oil. Reviving agriculture, investing in manufacturing, and promoting renewable energy can create jobs and stabilize the economy. Nigeria must also address its infrastructure deficit, particularly in the power sector, to unlock its full potential. Will Nigeria's leaders finally rise to the challenge and use its vast resources to build a better future for all? What do you think Nigeria needs to do to overcome the resource curse? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth content on global issues. Together, let's uncover the stories that shape our world.